77 and 43 run with the complimentary plays here on the Video Report. The plays that I'm giving away for free over the past 62 days after a 2-0 sweep in baseball last night as I cashed with the Mets on the run line at Atlanta and the Rangers in a shutout at home. And listen, today, guys, I've got free picks on Florida, East Carolina, Georgia Tech, Tulane, Michigan State, Oregon, plus my opinions on Ohio State and Hawaii, LSU and Mississippi State, and California, San Diego State. That's all coming up in just a moment. You know, the one most frustrating thing about being a handicapper and being a gambler, because they go hand in hand, is that you can analyze a game 7 ways till Sunday. You can look at it from every single perspective, but you simply cannot forecast the two factors that so often influence games, and those are turnovers and injuries. Listen, I'm a handicapper. I'm not a psychic. Last night, case in point, Shawn Michaels had a monster 100-dime play on Utah last night. I had a small 5-dime play on Utah last night. If you told either one of us that prior to the game that your starting quarterback, the fifth-year senior Travis Wilson, a guy who had such a dynamic game in the season opener against Michigan and was so strong down the stretch last year for the Utes, would injure his shoulder midway through the second quarter as he was driving into territory to bring the Utes to a 14-7 edge, I don't think either one of us probably would have bet on it, and neither would you. But again, it happened. He didn't play the rest of the game. And I'll tell you guys, to be honest with you, what I do in those particular situations, and I recommend everybody else should do, is you mutter your favorite obscenity, you shrug your shoulders, and you go, it's one of those things. Now, over the long haul, the breaks ultimately go your way more often than not. Of course, when you lose a game like that, when your key player, one of your starters there, your quarterback, goes out early, what are you going to do? I mean, you think the whole world is conspiring against you. But the beautiful thing about football is you've always got a shot at redemption on Saturday. You have 4,700 games being played today. Now, as a handicapper, I'll be honest with you, what I do on a card, and I think that you probably out there probably should be doing the exact same thing. The key on a Saturday card is simply to narrow down the card quickly. Look at the games that you have some interest in and skip the rest. Listen, if you don't know anything about Colorado State, then what the hell are you doing putting your money on them? You know what I mean? So for me today, with all the games on the board, I narrowed it down quickly to 11 games. This isn't like the days when I used to have my own tip sheet back in the 90s, where 5 straight years over a 24-hour span, Saturday night into Sunday, I wrote a preview for every single football game. Now, this is about picking that game that you want to bet on. So for me, I narrowed down the card to 11 games. Now, did I spend 20, 30 minutes per game to go ahead and handicap each one? Absolutely. But it pays dividends as the season progresses, because it's that accumulation of knowledge which ultimately leads to making you a winner. Because you'll see, especially in my case, as the season goes on, I will continually come back to the same teams, the same conferences that I feel that I have a handle on. Last year, it was the SEC, Conference USA, and the top teams in the Pac-12. Now, 2 years ago, it was the Big 12 that made me money nonstop. It just so happens that it changes constantly, but it's that accumulation of knowledge as you read about the teams, as I personally use the beat writers to be my eyes and ears as they're following the teams, giving me the inside scoop on each one of them. And as the season progresses, that's where you find your go-to teams or your go-against teams. And that's really the key to success, I think, to handicapping and gambling in college football. You just can't come in blindly and say, hey, I watched that feature on ESPN the other night about Michigan State. Geez, I think I'm going to ride the Spartans tonight. It's just not the way it works. You got to do some homework. Okay, let me get to your free picks here. Real quickly, though, I just want to remind you that this being Saturday, you can save 22% off your total purchase price by using coupon code 22%. And that could potentially save you hundreds of dollars off that total purchase price today. I use this coupon every single Saturday, a variation of it, because over 80% of you guys out there are involved in one type of long-term package or another, some of you with multiple packages, so you always know you can count on Saturdays. Now, it's a single-use coupon, but it's a mix-and-match coupon, which means it's good for a 22% discount off your total purchase price, any mixture of individual picks and or packages. The only stipulation, you got to put everything in your shopping cart at one time, so you can't come in and buy Brad Wilton's monster 150-dime play that goes on the early card and then come back 7 hours later and buy Steve Buden's latest 100-dime play on the nighttime card. Everything in your shopping cart at one time to maximize your savings, and that coupon code is simply 22%, 22 PERCENT. And speaking of Wilton, you remember that he just hit his 150 dime play in baseball Wednesday night with the, what was it, the Indians over the White Sox. You got it as the half price play of the day. I saw he had a 150 dime play today. First time he's ever had a 150 dime play in college football since joining the site in February 2013. It's his 150 dime winner, number 6 out of 7 overall. It's a 4 TD blowout, he says. It goes on the early card. It's the half price play of the day by using coupon code 150 dimes, 150 DIMES. And I got to go give props to Steve Buden's New York crew. What a roll they are on. Yesterday, 100 dime winner, Cubs in the nightcap at Philadelphia. The night before, Indians on the run line as a $1.10 dog against Detroit. Today, 100 dime max wager winner number 9 out of 11 over the past 3 weeks. You've got in every single one of them for at least half price off. And today, save $60 by using coupon code NYC100. That's NYC100. They have had 14 plays the past 3 weeks. You've gotten them all at least half price off. 10 winners, $10 bettors, making $5,250 total. All your other coupons are over on the homepage. Let me get now to your free picks for today's card. We'll do these as best as I can in reverse chronological order. Let's take a look at the best game and the marquee game maybe on the schedule today, and that, of course, is going to be the Michigan State-Oregon game. We know what happened last year when the Spartans went to Eugene, where they had a total collapse after playing so well for 2 quarters in that game. Well, they opened the season 37-24 at Western Michigan last week. But as I pointed out when I gave you a free pick on that particular game, for the Broncos, that's Western Michigan, that was the monster game for them, because here it is, your in-state rival, not rival, but your in-state competitor coming to visit you. It was the biggest game in Western Michigan history at home. Well, listen, when you look at the final score and you see 37-24, what you fail to realize is that Michigan State got up early, as I warned you, and they would get into a letdown situation and a look-ahead situation. They took a 34-10 lead, and if you don't think that these kids, 17 to 22-year-old kids, weren't looking ahead to today's rematch with Oregon, well, you got to be foolish, right? So they collapsed in the second half, a little bit of a lackadaisical effort. As for Oregon, of course, new quarterback in Vernon Adams, who transferred as a graduating senior from Eastern Washington, ironically playing Eastern Washington, his old team, at home last week. Ducks, not exactly a strong defensive effort, 61-42 win. You know, the thing with Adams is, yes, he did play some big games against step-up foes when he was with Eastern Washington. But this is another animal here. I mean, this is your first road start for your brand new team, a team that you only joined late in summer camp because you didn't get your graduation until later at Eastern Washington. So you're still developing that chemistry with your receivers. He doesn't particularly have a big arm, so you got to question whether or not he can throw the good long ball. Michigan State playing in revenge. Now, here's the thing. I look at Michigan State's season last year, and it was an excellent season. The 2 teams they lost to, Ohio State at home 49-37, Oregon on the road. Both Oregon and Ohio State had more speed, had more athleticism than Michigan State. I think this is a game where Michigan State's senior quarterback, Connor Cook, has to step up because he didn't play that well in either one of those losses last year. The line has come down. It's Michigan State 4. This is a situation where if that line's 3.5, 4, 4.5, I am buying down the half point. I'm willing to go with Michigan State in revenge. Listen, the Spartans had to be sitting there and watching Ohio State get the revenge win against Virginia Tech on the road the other night. They know as well as the Ohio State Buckeyes do that these 2 teams, they only have one big game the entire season, and that's against each other, probably for the conference title. So I'm going to go with Michigan State at home in this one minus the points. Now, your next complimentary play. Let's take a look at the game between Georgia Tech and Tulane. You know, the most difficult thing in college football is to prepare for an offense that you just don't see that often. And here comes into play the triple option attack of Georgia Tech. I mean, it's hard to defend against them. It's hard to defend against the options that Navy and Air Force and Army run as well. But Georgia Tech is even more dangerous because this is a much better team than the other three service academies put together, and they have a very good quarterback. They found a good quarterback last year in Justin Thomas after going through a few years where they had guys that could run the ball but really weren't much of a passing threat. Now, the guy's not going to drop back and throw the ball 35 times a game, okay? But he is at least a threat, and that's what you need to really make the triple option go. Now, last week, this is a Georgia Tech team that absolutely rolled over Alcorn State, which they should have, 69-6, but they also are taking on a Tulane team that they beat in New Orleans last year, a game in which they ran for 344 yards. And I'm telling you, Tech is a better team this year. Now, you look at Tulane, and they opened up the season at home last week against Duke. And this is a Duke team that I think, is not as good as the Duke additions you've had the last couple of years because David Cutcliffe is breaking in a new quarterback. By season's end, with quarterbacks, you never know what you're going to get. Could be a decent Duke team. But right now, I think it's a team that's still trying to find its way. Well, they didn't lose their way in Tulane last week because they annihilated them. 530 yards total offense and a 37-7 road win. Well, if Tulane gets annihilated at home, I have no problem telling you to go ahead and lay 31 points with Georgia Tech here. Now, does Georgia Tech perhaps get caught looking ahead to next week's game against Notre Dame? That's a possibility, and that's why this play is a free play, because as I always say about the free selections, it's the best of the worst. It's plays that I absolutely love, but for one reason or another, they're slightly flawed, so I relegate them to free pick status. But you heard what my free pick record is at the outset of this report. I've been doing pretty damn well, and I always have with the free selection. So I'm going to go with Georgia Tech and lay the points in this one, noting that Tulane has failed to cover 10 of its last 14 games, also pointing out that Georgia Tech, Paul Johnson's team, 10-4-1 against the spread the last 15 times they've laid double digits. So again, Georgia Tech, and I think that, the key here with Georgia Tech's triple option is they're going to control the possession clock. And if Tulane can't get on the field, they can't score. So I'm looking for a big blowout win there. Your other complimentary play, I'm going to go with the Florida Gators. Minus 21 points at home against East Carolina. Now, you remember these two played in the Birmingham Bowl last year, a game in which the Pirates outgained Florida 536 to 339 in total yards. Turnovers, however, led to a 28-20 loss. Now, that was an East Carolina team that had Shane Carden playing his final game at quarterback for them, okay? Their projected starting quarterback for this year, they lost in August to a knee injury. So they're playing a junior college transfer, Kemp, at quarterback right now. East Carolina has failed to cover 9 of its last 10 games. They're 2-11 in their last 13 road openers against the spread. As far as what happened last year with Florida and what happened in the Birmingham Bowl game, it doesn't matter. You wipe it off the slate. This is a different Gators team. New coach, coming in from Colorado State, a guy who has installed more of a pro-style, almost pistol-like offense. And I find it very interesting that last week he gave the start to who was his name? Treon Harris. And Will Greer, the freshman, came in. And those two guys had a great game, which they should have, in a 61-13 romp against New Mexico State. But this week, they're giving the freshman Will Greer his first start. Now, he was 16 for 18 for 166 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he ran for 43 yards last week against New Mexico State. Do you know, and just in case you're on Jeopardy later this week, you should know this, he becomes the 9th starting quarterback for the Gators since Tim Tebow left Gainesville, okay? And how's this for irony, in case you have the double Jeopardy question, bonus question, is that he's making his first pro start against the team that his father once quarterbacked. East Carolina. As for East Carolina, again, I'm just not that impressed. They opened up and they struggled. They were a 30-point favorite against Towson, and they only won 28-20. They allowed Towson to get 416 total yards. Listen, the Gators know this is a new program, a new fresh start, playing in the swamp. They've got to build on the momentum from the New Mexico State route, and I say they get the job done. What really surprises me here is that this game is not a 30-point margin. I mean, 21 points, 3 touchdowns? I think Florida can get the job done here in this particular case. So again, I'm going with the Gators as your other complimentary play. Now, I handicapped all these other games, and I want to give you my impressions on these as well. Don't really have one side or another I lean to, but hell, if you want to stick around, I did the homework, so let me pass it on to you. Hawaii and Ohio State. I think it's very easy to simply say, hey, Ohio State, classic letdown situation. And you wouldn't be wrong. And they're also working on the short week, having played Monday night, okay? But Hawaii plus 41 points? I mean, what can I tell you? Yes, they did beat Colorado as a 7-point underdog, 28-20 at home last week, but they were outgained by 71 yards in that game. They were out first down 24-14 in that game. The quarterback, Max Wittek, the former USC starter, very good in Norm Chow's spread attack. He had a decent game, 19 for 38, 202 yards, 3 touchdowns, but he was also intercepted 2 times. Here's the thing with Ohio State. They have such depth. They have the 2 quarterbacks. They have a situation here where if they wanted to, they could win by 60 points. I mean, you could easily see this being, 60-13. I mean, that is absolutely a possible scenario. But again, I have to ask you, they had that game against Virginia Tech circled on their calendar for a year. How did they get up for this game? And it's interesting that Urban Meyer is only 10-10 or 12-10 against the spread as a home chalk since taking over the Buckeyes program. Ohio State did average 47 points a game at home last season. Just a game that if I had to, I'd grab the points with Hawaii. It's nice being able to say you're up 41-0 before the opening kickoff. But do you really want to put good money on a bad team? And make no bones about it, Hawaii is a bad team. So I would lean to Hawaii, but obviously it's not a game that I'm particularly enthralled with. Another game, California and San Diego State. Both of these teams beat up cupcakes in their opening week outings. California taking care of business 73-14 against Grambling. This is not the Grambling of the 60s and 70s with Eddie Robinson. This is just an average, mediocre team. Defense forced 5 turnovers, scored a pair of touchdowns, only gave up 297 yards. For a maligned, and deservedly so, maligned California defense, that's a good start. But again, they were playing a cupcake. On the other hand, the Aztecs, San Diego State, beat crosstown rival San Diego 37-3. But understand, University of San Diego is a non-scholarship program. So you, me, and 47 other guys, we could be a non-scholarship program. You get the drift here? So them winning 37-3, big deal. They are the favorite to win the Western Division in the Mountain West Conference this season. They've got that 3-3-5 defense that Rocky Long loves here, which is built to stop high-powered passing attacks, and that's exactly what California has. San Diego State's offense or defense only allowed an average of 19.8 points a game last season. But their offense is what I'm worried about because they've got the former Kentucky transfer Maxwell Smith at quarterback. I mean, he had an awful game against San Diego, 9 for 21 with an interception. Jared Goff setting all types of records for California. I'll tell you what, I think this is going to be one of the more surprising blowouts on the card. So I lean toward California here. But again, it's not an official free pick. But I do like the Golden Bears in this particular contest. And then the final game I wanted to talk about here today is the big SEC showdown between Mississippi State and LSU. Now, the Bulldogs went into Baton Rouge last year and snapped the 14-game series skid with the 34-29 win. And it wasn't really that close because LSU only made it respectable by scoring the final 19 points in this game. Now, Mississippi State certainly did not look good last week in their opener at Southern Mississippi, laying 21 points as a road favorite. They really struggled to the 34-16 win. But I think that's to be expected because these Bulldogs, even though they have Dak Prescott back at quarterback, who he, of course, had 373 total yards in last year's upset win on the road, they lost a lot of their defensive stars, okay? On the other hand, you had an LSU team that had the offense and the defense each played one series before its game last week at Tiger Stadium was called off because of lightning and inclement weather. So Mississippi State doesn't have any game tape. And on the other hand, LSU doesn't have any real prep time. And I think that hurts the Tigers coming into this game. You look at this LSU team, they lost their longtime defensive coordinator, John Chavis, who left the team. 21 underclassmen entered the NFL draft the past 3 years. 80 total underclassmen entered the NFL draft out of the SEC over the past 3 years. 21 of those 80 came from LSU. So it's a credit to Les Miles' program that he constantly is able to replenish the cupboard, okay? But at the same time, you got to wonder, all that attrition definitely hurts you. And you have an LSU team that last year could not get to the quarterback, only had 19 sacks on the season. Now, what LSU is counting on here in this particular game is the fact that they've got a quarterback that can throw the ball, Brandon Harris. But keep in mind, this guy is still relatively green. This is only his second career start, first on the road. He's going to have the cowbells going crazy there in Starkville here tonight. He does have Leonard Fournette, who only had 7 carries in last year's game because he wasn't the focal point in terms of the running game at that point. So I think you have a lot of interesting scenarios here. But what I find most interesting is LSU is the 4-point favorite. LSU is a 4-point favorite, and this is a team that's 5-11 against the spread in its last 16 on the road. I think this is a field goal game. I think Mississippi State can cover. I don't think Mississippi State wins this game for some reason. But again, if you're giving me a 4-point number and I'm going to buy it up to 4.5, and I think it's a 3-point game, I give the lean toward LSU. So again, I lean toward Hawaii. I lean toward Mississippi State. I like California of the 3 lean plays the most of all. And the official free plays for your Saturday card, Florida, Georgia Tech, and Michigan State. Guys, that's it for this edition of your video report. I wish you well. Make some money today. And we'll do it all again tomorrow with the start of that, what's that? Oh, NFL, is that what they call it? Yeah, that NFL. First big Sunday slate coming up. And I'll see you again tomorrow, guys. Best of luck today.